When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. For the audience listening, Gina has been a CNN reporter. She did journalism for quite a long time. And then she's done some TED Talk and put herself on the platform. She has a gift of communication. Her business is communicating with CEOs and leadership. And she's worked with many major C-suite level and above around the world. And for those people that might be listening to the show, Gina, what is your advice to them to how to have balance in the culture and in the environment? What is the secret sauce to have the staff, the organization to have some balance in life? Because I know there's like a struggle right now with the 4-day work week. Everybody wants that 4-day work week. And now these corporations are laying off like, well, you got to do more with less. And so screw the 4-day work week. You got to go back to 5 to 6, 40 to 80 hours a week. And maybe there's a big shift going on in the corporate world to where, it's all about the bottom line for the shareholders and the, board of directors, and they want to make as much money as possible. And are we going to see a big shift in demand of the employee out there? What's your thoughts on all that?
Ooh, wow, there was a lot to unpack from that, Mark. Okay, a couple of thoughts at the top of my mind on this is, first of all, the demand and requirement for people to have people skills has never been as important as it is today. Because some of the things you touched on, for example, might be more pressure on a company to perform, but a lot of that is going to come from digital transformation, which means a lot of AI, a lot of machine learning, a lot of automated things that are going to be replacing people formerly done jobs. So in order to be competitive and in order to be marketable, your communications, your ability to be a team builder, a collaborative person, an inspirational speaker, not on a TED Talk, but to be able to be someone who is in tech, for example, and is able to talk to the chief marketing officer about it in a way in which they understand, is really important. If you're a marketer person and you can't talk about what you're wanting to campaign around to your CEO in a clear and brief way, and someone else can, they are the ones that are going to advance. So being able to think about not just, I can't make a difference on what the trends personally are going to do for how companies are going to be managing and what's the shareholder advantage for the top earners and those that's out of my remit. But what I can do is help people who come to me learn how they can be giving themselves that spotlight, or how they can become someone who's motivating for a team depending on their role. And a lot of clients that I have really brought input. And I'm often, though, asked to be working in companies that do have a people-centric workforce. That means that they are putting their employees in the first part of their decision-making. It's not purely money-driven, because the research shows if you are taking care and valuing your employees, you will have better productivity, more engaged employees are going to work better, et cetera, et cetera. But that said, redundancies happen, layoffs happen. It's a cyclical game. So how do you keep yourself in the game? And by the way, you asked about balance. I don't believe there is such a thing as work-life balance.
Interesting.
I don't, because we're not an on and off switch. How we are framing our thoughts, how we are looking at the day, how we are looking at our relationships. And by the way, relationships are your work employees. They're also your spouse or your significant other or your friends. And I don't think that we're all a family at a job. That I'm not saying that, but I do think that we need to cultivate our style of being who we are and stop thinking, oh, well, I'm just myself with my friends and I'm a different person when I'm in work. You're just a person. You're not a professional life and a personal life. You just have a life. So why not take more ownership of that in every facet? And that's, I think, going to help you have more control of the things you can control. Because let's face it, as we were talking already this time, we can't control what some big companies are going to do. We can't control what's happening in the Ukraine. We can't control what's going on if there's another round of pandemic or what have you. There's a lot we can't control, and it's frustrating to people.
Sure.
And yet there's a lot that we can control. So I think if you go back to your, I don't know, junior high school when you were learning in math, Venn diagrams, there's a circle and then there's another circle and the intersection of that circle, right? So
right.
The circle of the things that matter. Then think about the circle of the things that you can control, that you can control. Only look at that little edge where things that matter and things you can control, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't matter that you can control. And there's a lot of stuff that is really important, but you can't control it. So look at that little area of what matters and what you can control, and start there.
And I think you said something key right here, Gina, is I think American culture, so you want to control your environment. When people start losing control, maybe not just American culture, but human beings in general, when they feel like they lose control, they start freaking out. And that's why you have, people freaking out and they go, oh crap, now what do I do? They go into fight or flight mode psychologically. And it's just innately, you just want to control, your environment, your life, and all type of things. So there's a lot of chaos happening with that.
Yeah, well, see, this is exactly right. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, as I was saying in the earlier live cast over on LinkedIn, but I do fortunately work with a lot of people who are, and one in particular, Wendy Suzuki from New York University, I'd consider a friend. The idea that your cognitive science around your fight or flight mentality, our brains are made to protect us and to filter things out that might be making us concerned and nervous and things like that. But what it's not designed to do is discipline us. So that's where we have to be able to say, what is self-care? Self-care is getting physical activity, because we know the science of our body getting exercise is also going to help give us some more plasticity to our brain, and no matter what age we are, and help us feel refreshed. So that's something that we need to do. That's also then the result of that is going to be those positive endorphins and those hormones that make us feel more positive, right? So when we start to feel uncertain or nervous or anxious, the tendency is to shut down, to go sleep, to drink some alcohol, to just, I don't know, whatever else whatever is your comfort from pain. The counterintuitive thing is actually the thing that you should do, which is go take a walk, go out in the fresh air, do something that disrupts the negative, anxious thoughts. And the way to disrupt negative action or negative disruptive thought, the way to disrupt negative thoughts is through action. There, I got it out in the end.
Good job.
You don't fight thoughts with thoughts. You fight thoughts with action.
Interesting paradigm there.
So that means as soon as you start to feel those things that are going to make you feel nervous, unless you're in like a public place where you're really going to call crazy attention to yourself, I encourage my clients to actually out loud clap your hand and go stop, and then stand up, walk in your room for 1 minute, do a little extra, just do something, but you need to clear those cobwebs. And physical movement is one of the best ways to do that. 10 minutes of physical movement disrupts so much activity of negativity in your brain.
10 minutes.
Because they say, oh, what's the least amount I can do so that I'll feel whatever. And that's the answer. Just 10 minutes. But do it.
Wow. We just got a course on psychiatry, the brain, and how the chemistry works in the brain. But you're right, because the what do they call those, the chemicals that are going off in your brain when you're going into flight mode? I can't.
Well, they're
like psychology.
I don't think that's the different negative ones, but cortisol is one of the
cortisol.
It's one of the negative hormones that's produced when we get anxious or nervous, and the adrenaline starts to go up in a negative way. And so to combat that are the things that you can do to try to produce those endorphins or the positive feelings that you can get. And that is from physical activity is one of the best ones. Now, one of the things I think is fantastic is we also have a tendency sometimes, again, we want to comfort ourselves with food or binge watching or scrolling. See, those are all passive activities. So
check out activities.
I'm not saying you can never watch a Netflix series. I've certainly done it. But I'm also thinking that when we talk about balance, I would say the best balance you can find is a balance between your activity and your sedentary lifestyle.
True.
At any age. And that, again, don't quote me, but look to the neuroscience, is that at any age, you can begin to refresh your hippocampus and refresh the plasticity in your brain with activity. There have been limited studies even that have demonstrated that the more active, even just from walking regularly, will reduce the onset of dementia.
Walking. I need to walk more than I average 4 miles a day. I got to double that.
No, you can just you're already doing it. You're doing it. But for those people that are out there that think they have to do 4 miles a day, you don't. Just do 10 minutes a day. Start that.
Don't do Mark. I'm an hour and a half.
Because people here's the thing. We have this mindset a lot of times that if I don't do the marathon, I'm not going to do anything. And I'm going to keep waiting until I'm ready to do the marathon. But the science is out there that says, no, just do 10 minutes every day. Or do a couple of minutes when you're having that negative thought so you can disrupt that. But this is how you build and develop your plasticity of your brain, which is your resilience, which is your ability to try things new, which is a way to recover from when you've been made redundant or laid off, or you've suffered a breakup. And I'm certainly not saying that I have every answer and that it's easy to have a positive mindset, but more connections, not fewer. Another person I have had the great pleasure of interviewing a number of times is the head scientist and the director of the world's longest study on happiness, Dr. Robert Waldinger. Check him out. He's got an amazing TED Talk and a new book that just came out last month called The Good Life. And his study shows, they started like 1928. He's obviously not the original director because he'd be 112 years old. But he's the fourth director now of this study. They started in the 20s with a handful of guys from Harvard and a handful of guys initially, young men from the inner city in Boston. So very different potentialities from the way you'd think their lives would go. But interestingly, some of the guys from the, quote, wrong side of the tracks had incredibly successful lives where they considered themselves very happy and their family did too. And some of the other guys from more privileged lifestyle didn't. And the big difference was how they connected with other people and the strength of their relationships, not their education, not their money.
That is powerful.
It is. I mean, this is the single definer of who we are as people, as a level of our relationships. And it doesn't mean we have to have 1,000 of them, but we do. And also the study's fantastic that talks about if you are in your, 60s and you're feeling isolated, or you've been working from home and you're feeling isolated, you can make a move to join a group, to go to a gym, to join a knitting club. I'm sure all of your security guys out there, that's something that's on their mind. Find a way to go and meet some other people. Walking club, a hiking club. There's so many ways to get out. And that's the difference in people's mindset is even if you're an introvert, you don't have to have loads and loads and loads of them, but we still need people.
Yeah, human connection is so vital right now for mental health, mental well-being, interaction with people. And, you brought up a big thing I want to go back on, Gina, is I know the new generation is all about, I have to have balance in my life. I need balance. I'm like, where did you get that from? Where did that come balance? And that's a big balance and different things like, I have to go to my safe place. I'm like, where did the work? When I was in the workforce, it's like, suck it up, get to work, suck it up. Navy SEAL motto is suck it up. And Marine Corps is go, hoorah, Semper Fi, go get it.
Yeah. I think I hear where you're going and what you're saying. There have been plenty of people that I've worked with usually at the top level at this point, because with that seniority would come a little bit of more of an age veteran, old style of leadership.
Interesting. Okay.
And we would call this the command and control style. So the command and control style of leadership is, here, you all got to wear your uniforms. You all can get back in the office. You all got to do whatever this project for this many more hours. The coaching style of leadership is more of, probably you still have to wear the uniform, and here's why. And just that little bit of an extra around the message is also then giving people more feeling of being bought in, more feeling of that it's not just the directive, but there's also thought behind it. And if you want to get even more into the intricacies of the communication around consensus building and the coaching style, is you would start at even earlier to select people for a brainstorming or a session on, hey, what are some things that we can do to improve our look? You might have a foregone conclusion that it's going to be the uniform as the leader, as the manager, but you are also going to be open to other ideas and addition and thoughts and sharing, and that innovative brainstorm that you're facilitating or that you're even having another team leader facilitate, that's cultivating buy-in, getting their involvement. When we talk about engagement and inclusivity and diversity, it's really about knowing that we make that extra effort in the beginning, we are going to have so much more productivity and outcome at the end. And so that approach to leadership takes more effort rather than, you just go by your kid's room and you go, clean that room. That's the old.
Ignored that way.
That's the command and control. And then you go back 10 minutes later and it's still not clean because they're not listening to you anyway. That's my own experience. Those are coming
true.
through.
True.
Think about, what is it we're really trying to cultivate? And I think that this type of communication takes more thought, takes more strategy, but ultimately it results in a deeper relationship, which is what we are trying to get into. Even if you had a discussion, as you're saying, you're like, the younger people, they say they need a safe space. Okay, maybe we have a conversation with our new hires or our junior execs and we say, hey, let's define terms.
Genius.
Mean. Yeah, I mean, why are we presupposing in this conversation, what's a safe place? I don't know. I have not talked to them on that. I'd love, if that were a situation for me, I would say, all right, I'm hearing a couple words going around. Let's have a talk. I want to know. Because what you're doing is you're bridging the divide. Bridging the divide is the way to try to understand people more. I don't understand your point of view. Share with me. What are you going through? And I bet together, once you give them an open space to talk about things, as opposed to presuppose why or what, you'll probably be able to come to some conclusions together. Whew, I got excited about that one.
Yeah, you lit a fire. Wow, a little passion behind. But that's why Gina's so good at what she does, folks. She's sought after by CEOs of billion-dollar companies to coach them, to help them with their branding, their whatever they're trying to do. And she's sought after by big names, and she can't discuss that because of the NDAs, of course, and she's got to protect those clients. But she is very well sought after. And as you guys can listen to her, she knows what she's talking about. She's done some stuff.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, I was just working with a C-level guy this week one of the largest companies in the world, by the way, and he's getting ready to go to a big presentation, give a keynote about his career and trying to give some career tips to others. And the point I'm sharing here is you could easily jump, which he did initially, to here are the values that I have and here are the achievements that I made. But a better way to tell the story is to talk about the struggles that he had and the advantages that he didn't have, because you look at a big guy like this guy is, and I'm not going to get too descriptive about him because I don't want anybody to figure it out. But you might see, privilege. He was one of the ones who had it easy. And when you start to spend a little more time sharing about how he started making his way and the 3 jobs he held and the difficulties he had and all these things, the point here is we often need a coach or a guide to help us tell a story that really connects, to unpack more of who we are, that will be able to be something that resonates with someone else and helps them feel that, that's a similarity, or, he didn't have everything paved in gold for him, and that is where I come in as a professional storyteller for one. And also then some of that performativity. Here's an important thing to think about. I often work with the top level execs and such who have gotten where they are probably from the command and control thing. And they also have a great set of skills. But what they haven't developed is that softer, more warm side of them. And for example, one CEO I was working with, he initially said, as I was encouraging him around some techniques, he says, this is happy clappy. Because I don't want happy clappy. Because people think happy clappy means fake, right? And I said, okay, let me put you on camera. Just give me the content. Talk about what you're going to do to your new employees at this town hall meeting. So he goes on for a bit. I said, stop. Now I want you to do it again. Same words, but this time I want you to smile like you feel like you are a fool, like you are cracking your face and you looked like, Bozo the Clown. So he did it that time. He thought it was such an enormous smile as he was doing it. And I showed both of the different presentations to him back to back. And he says, oh my gosh, I don't even like that.
Out.
I don't even like that first guy. That first guy looks mean.
Wow.
And when he looked at the second one, he says, I didn't smile at once. Wow. And then one of my other clients said, I said, what have you taken away from some of the things that we've been working on? And he said, you know what? It's not cheating. And I thought that was significant because initially the idea of warming up your face or asking questions of an audience or sharing a story from your childhood, all this stuff might feel contrived and unnatural to someone who hasn't done it. But the whole point of becoming a purposeful and purpose-filled communicator is that it's just like learning to speak another language or learning to take up an instrument or something. It takes practice, but over time, that becomes the new natural you. And that's changing your mindset by changing your actions.
Boom. Right back to full circle. That's a powerful story. Yeah, that's why you're good at what you do. And what hit home to me is the personal story creates that emotional connection to that listener. And it becomes real.
There's three parts that people are experiencing you when they're seeing you, like you and I get to see each other right now. I think you're in person with someone if you're on a video on a video call. More, it's better to be in person. Next best is to be virtual on camera, and then then audio, and then text. I mean, those are obviously, let's research around all of the importance of, let's say you're in person and you're speaking. The three ways that we reach the person right now in any communication event are the words that we choose, the voice that we deploy, and the body language that we signal. Most people, imagine three legs of a stool. Most people spend a lot of time on content, if anything of those three. They're going to think about their presentation. They might come up with the words. They're often really chronological tell with a lot of history before they get to the so what of the thing. And it's a lot of boring stuff around the edges that people aren't, but you've got the content. When they deliver the content, though, most people so focused on the words that they forget that we're also getting signals and listening to them from the voice and reading the image that they're giving of themselves. So connecting your voice with the emotion behind the words and having your body language also support that makes those three legs of that stool balance. There's the balance that you can find.
There you go.
So that requires you to actually listen to your voice. Do I always have a strong, solid delivery and I never vary my pace or my pitch or my projection? What about if I'm wanting to be more sensitive or thinking about a confidential or something aspirational? I might raise my voice. Men or women can do these techniques. Maybe I want to go slow and low as I land a point. These things actually make a real difference. In a lot of presentation or hosting type of things, you'll even do what we call the applause cue. You'll go, and that's why we're here. And as soon as you do that kind of a cadence, no matter whatever those words were, it's the cadence that actually triggers people to do the applause. Like you talk about applause lines.
That makes sense. Totally.
Of course.
Wow.
But it's these are all learned skills. And so when I work with depending on what the ask is for clients, I get to learn a lot about their stories, because where they're coming, are they a confident deliverer? Or do they feel like they're connecting with their teams and feel like they're competing for space among their other C-suite team members or the board? And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the relationships at high levels too. It can be a very lonely place. How to build alliances, how to find trusted partners. That's tough. So I often have to learn. I'm not a psychologist, but the themes are similar. How did your dad treat you? Was your dad in the picture? Was a sibling a shinier and more sporty, athletic drama person than you? All that kind of stuff forms how we think about ourselves. And we take that thought of ourselves everywhere we go. And our experiences either lean into that and reinforce it, or over time we can find ways to disrupt it. But all this kind of stuff of who we think we are and how others perceive us can be modified. But first we got to have an awareness together of how you are, have a desire to connect in a more purposeful way, and then get into the discipline that's required, the day-to-day work to start to modify this stuff, because it's little incremental changes that over time creates really powerful impact.
Wow, that was a masterclass right there, folks. Wow. This is going to probably be the top rated podcast yet, because we got so many gold nuggets out of Gina. Man.
Thanks. But the great news is it's applicable for anybody in anything.
It is, totally.
Any life, it really
Absolutely.
is. Who are you trying to influence? Who are you trying to persuade? First of all, it's you. How do you talk to you every morning? Are you nice to yourself? Are you positive? Are you disciplined? There's a lot of, back to the young people, that it's not about how you feel, it's about what you do.
What was that again?
A lot of times it's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like getting up early. Well, doesn't matter.
Do it anyway. Wow. I hear that a lot. I don't feel like it. It's like, did I say that in my 20s? I can't remember.
No. I had, here's the final line on physicality, because again, it's connected to our brains and it's connected to how we think, which is how we perform. And so it's all cyclical, right? Years ago, when I lived in Egypt, I would run every morning with a marathon runner. I would only run 2 miles, and then he ran like another 12. I don't know. But he was fantastic, because he had this great line where he talked about exercise, unlike sex or eating, feels like, stay with me. Exercise, unlike sex or eating, feels great after you're done.
After you're done. Well, the audience heard that, and wow, that was awesome.
You gotta wait to the end of that one. You're gonna go, what is she talking about? But it's a good, because a lot of times you don't feel like doing stuff, but you're gonna feel such a great sense of accomplishment after you get it done. So push through the feelings. I mean, get out of bed. The research is there. I'm not saying that no person that's depressed needs to have antidepressants, but there is so much great research about the power of getting dressed, the power of getting out of the house, the power of going for a walk to help clear your thoughts and give you more purpose, because you're going to feel that sense of accomplishment. Again, you're going to have those endorphins coming, and that's going to help you reset and feel great about if you were, I was fired years ago. I came back from having my daughter at 3 months after I took my maternity leave. I came back, and 3 weeks later I was let go summarily without any notice. And I went from 6 figures to 0 figures in a day.
Wow.
I mean,
traumatic.
These kinds of things happen in life. My dad died he was a pilot when I was from a small corporation. He had just dropped off the president from at one hangar, and he was flying over to the hangar where his plane was kept. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. I was 11 years old. It was really, really foggy. He apparently didn't look at his controls for whatever reason. 500 yards from the runway, he hit trees and he went down and died when I was 11.
11 years old. He was an Air Force pilot, right?
Yeah, my stepdad actually was the Air Force. My dad had been in the Marines, but
Oh, your dad was a Marine. Okay.
yeah, and but these are, and it's not about tragedy competition. Everybody has difficulties.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a person that believes that everything happens for a reason. I'm a person that believes that things just happen, but what we do gives them reason over time.